You're in the way. Don't you get it yet? Just stand outside and wait, you incompetent high school grad.
My boss, department head Ken, who had followed me on a business meeting that cost $20 million, threatened me in a loud voice, as if he had been obviously pissed off. He then turned his back on me and immediately began to discuss the business with our business partner, Mark. However, Mark was flustered and managed to squeeze out his words.
What are you talking about? Do you even know who this person is?
I know. Terry is one of my employees, an incompetent man with just a high school diploma.
Ken laughed dismissively, but the next moment, his face turned pale. My name is Terry Murphy. I am a 42-year-old employee this year. I work for an international company that operates an e-commerce site. Our company is a bit unusual, founded by a young man who was a recluse in the United States. He was born a genius, and because his IQ was so high, it seemed silly to attend school. So he became a truant. Although he was offered the chance to skip grades, he found a whole framework of schooling bothersome and essentially self-taught himself the basics. As he continued learning various things, his interest shifted to programming, and he developed programming software on his own. Eventually, he set up an e-commerce site, a website for selling products online, and quickly expanded his influence. His momentum didn't stop there. Today, his company has grown to have branches not only in the United States, but around the world. The founder being a free spirit also means the workplace where I work is quite open. Knowing the founder's background, people who agreed with him gathered to start the company, which still maintains the same direction. One day, I was being interviewed by a certain media. An economic web magazine approached me for an interview, featuring me as a corporate person working at a currently thriving company in the US.
So, Terry, your final educational background is really just high school?
Yes, that would be correct. The journalist looked surprised and wide-eyed as I nodded honestly. The US still places a strong emphasis on educational background. I'm used to being reacted to this way about having just a high school diploma, but it seems my way of life is indeed different from others.
I know it's rude to say this, but you have a rather unique career background. Sorry to ask, but is it common in companies that run e-commerce sites to work like you do?
No, it's unique to our company. As you can see from our founder's background, we have an environment that doesn't mind accepting unusual employees like me. I started working at this company 5 years ago. I was noticed for my previous work experience and job content, and was asked to join the company. For me, no matter how large the company grows, I love the spirit of freedom that emphasizes individuality, skills over years of service, or educational background. Thanks to this company culture, I have been able to work freely since joining. We value employee autonomy, so we're not bound by power dynamics or hierarchical relationships. And none of us here, including myself, care about such things, especially since many employees have backgrounds similar to the founder. Nobody cares what your final educational level is. Just like this, I'm satisfied with my current environment, and I work hard every day. So, I never thought such a situation would suddenly change. The reason for the change at the company came one day when a new department head transferred from another department. His name was Ken Williams, and he was 4 years younger than me, only 38 years old. Ken, as the department head, joined the company as a talented individual fresh out of a prestigious university, and was soon promoted to department head. He had attended a prestigious private school from kindergarten through university. Naturally, he was born into a wealthy family that could easily afford such tuition, and it seems his joining the company was also influenced by connections. Rumor had it that Ken's father and our CEO, Robert Morrison, were old friends, and because of that connection, he started working without the usual employment screening. However, the employees didn't see his connection-based hiring as a big issue. This was because CEO Robert is known for being caring and valuing his employees, a person who understands the ethos of our company very well. We, the employees, trusted our CEO wouldn't allow a mere connection-based hiring without good reason. We thought that Ken, just because he started with a connection to the CEO, must be someone promising, but our expectations were quickly shattered. The Ken who appeared before us had a rather troublesome personality. From the day he made his introductory remarks, he began boasting about his educational background to us, the employees. More importantly, his work attitude was poor, and he would reluctantly handle even simple document preparation with a frown. Moreover, he regularly looked down on employees who graduated from less prestigious universities, calling them common citizens, and referred to those with only a high school diploma as outliers.
You know, people aren't born equal. When a high-class individual like me is in front of you, you low-class outliers can't even speak because you're so nervous,
He would say with a nonchalant face. Naturally, he quickly became alienated after transferring. Ken, quite a confident man, seemed to particularly dislike me. And among the sales department, he made snide remarks to me far more frequently than to anyone else.
You're a high school grad, right? You're beyond an outlier. I can't even think of you as the same kind of human. It's my first time having employee with just a high school diploma, so I don't even know what to talk about.
He would say loudly and look at me sarcastically. As these provocative and insulting comments continued, doubts about Ken's character and competence began to arise within the department. Apparently, Ken had the same attitude at his previous company, and although he had landed the job there through his parents' connections as well, his troublesome nature led him to be sidelined to simple clerical work. However, he convinced himself he was a superior individual, which made him quite frustrated with only being given simple tasks.
This workplace doesn't understand my value. They don't care about me. That's why they only give me boring tasks,
He declared. And that was the real reason he jumped from his previous job to our company. But even in this workplace, Ken was not allowed to participate in significant deals as he wished. Consequently, Ken became utterly discouraged and started blatantly slacking off. He spends his days catching employees as they pass by, only to boast about himself and lecture them.
I graduated from a famous university. I get along with the top executives of that company. I was the one who salvaged a deal that was almost broken off.
Director Ken does not attempt to work at all, but rather loudly brags to any passing employee. Moreover, he lacks knowledge of the work and even misses regular meetings. Employees started to wonder why such a person is even in the company. Still, the reason Ken remains seated as the department head might be because the company has grown significantly. The company used to be a group of eccentrics and mavericks, sharpened by being scouted from other companies, but now, it has an environment where people with a certain educational background, found through typical job hunting, work side by side as a matter of course. This company, which has become like a typical company, has even started to accept hires through connections. In this trend, the company has continued to employ highly educated but non-working employees like Ken. Yet Ken himself does not doubt that he is capable and confidently declared,
In reality, I delegate the actual work to the rank-and-file employees. As a capable department head, I excel at supervising and directing my employees.
After Ken arrived, everyone eventually gave up on taking him seriously, and if he was just slacking off alone, they preferred to turn a blind eye. Ken is originally incompetent, so it's better for us if he doesn't interfere with our work. This is how the handling of Ken became known within the department. But it soon led to a problematic situation. Ken, who had always targeted me because of my educational background, began to focus on me even more as he became ignored by everyone else.
An interview for a web magazine, getting all excited about it. Aren't you getting a bit too carried away?
No, I'm not getting cocky. As soon as the interview I had participated in was published, Ken frowned and confronted me. Apparently, because he isn't praised by anyone, seeing others get praised makes him unable to hold back his complaints.
By the way, I hear you've consolidated several contracts with a major manufacturer.
That was just proceeding as per the existing contracts. Upon hearing my words, Ken picked up the documents about the contract from my desk and scrutinized them. Then, dismissing them with a flick of his hand, he retorted,
Well, I suppose an employee who is high school grad can only come up with plans of this caliber. If I were in charge, I wouldn't have produced such shoddy plans. Clearly, there's a limit to what high school grads can do.
dumbfounded by his blatant manner. All I could do was remain silent. Ken, younger and highly educated, and I, older with only a high school education. Our backgrounds could not be more different. For Ken, there couldn't be an easier target for him to feel superior. Yet, I was utterly dumbfounded by Ken's words.
If I had been in charge of this contract, I could have utilized the connections from my private, top-tier university. Compared to someone like you who just finished high school, I could have put together a far more luxurious plan.
That's something, isn't it? Ken's bragging always sounds like a child throwing his weight around. With his high education, he must think he has hidden talents and is a very capable person, looking down on others. I've met people like him before, but this is the first time I've encountered someone who insults others so blatantly. I thought I could endure it until he was transferred again, but being continuously ridiculed for my achievements started to wear me down mentally. Still, as a title, Ken is our boss, and it's not easy to contradict him. As the atmosphere in the department gradually became heavier, I, representing the team, went directly to the CEO. I suggested that they either give Ken some guidance or reassign him, but I never thought it would backfire. One day, I was steadily preparing for an upcoming negotiation. Just then, Ken approached me and suddenly said something unexpected.
Hey, Terry, you've been working hard, but I've decided that this negotiation is too much responsibility for you, so please step back.
That's not true. The client has been dealing with me from the start, and they favor me. Caught off guard by this sudden conversation, I was completely flustered. The client I was preparing the negotiation for is a company I've been involved with since I joined this company. I explained that we had a long-standing relationship and that the meetings had been going smoothly. But Ken, far from being convinced, shook his head as if in dismay.
What a clueless guy. Did you check your client's background? They're elite and highly educated, just like me.
Indeed, Mark from the client side did graduate from a top university and is a capable person who runs an IT company. But how does that justify changing the handler? I couldn't possibly agree to step down unilaterally when I had carefully maintained and built trust with my client. I couldn't help but retort, but Ken ignored me and arbitrarily picked up the documents. He briefly skimmed through the contents and then clearly stated,
I can't leave such an elite client in the hands of someone who is a high school grad. Handling elite clients indeed requires someone highly educated like me.
But Mark has been assigned to me. Our CEO should know this as well. I desperately clung to the CEO. I figured that being cautioned by the CEO would be the most effective for Ken, who was hired through connections. But unexpectedly, Ken laughed as soon as he heard my words.
The CEO himself asked me to. Who are you, Terry? The CEO has personally instructed me to guide you closely in your future work.
With that, Ken reached out to me in an annoyed manner.
Once you understand the situation, hand over the rest of the documents quickly. It's unthinkable to let a high school grad handle elite clients.
Excuse me, but Mark has stated that he wants to deal with me. Changing the person in charge unilaterally without any communication could lead to issues. Ken's expression gradually turned to one of irritation as I refused to give up.
They're just flattering you. It's frustrating how low-skilled high school graduates like you can't even understand that.
It's not flattery. They are well aware of who I am. It seems Ken realized that I was not going to change my stance. With a click of his tongue, before I could speak further, he bluntly declared,
Anyway, I will be attending the negotiation. Remember, if you act without permission, you'll be disciplined.
Thinking back, I should have consulted with the CEO right there. However, believing that I could handle the situation, I faced the day of the negotiation. Ken had been giving me a hard time up to this day. After all, It was a big deal involving $20 million. Perhaps desperate for recognition, Ken did everything to sabotage and insisted on handling the negotiation alone. Somehow, I managed to accompany him, and he seemed quite excited about the big transaction ahead. At the client's office, Mark, the contact person, was already waiting for us, greeting us with a smile. Mark is a prodigy who graduated from a prestigious American university before studying abroad at an even more prestigious institution in England. After graduating, he got involved in managing a company in America and is currently expanding his business in collaboration with our company.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for your continued support. Mark, although a president, has a friendly and bright personality and takes the lead in creating a relaxed atmosphere even in critical business discussions. Thanks to him, we were able to interact in a relaxed manner. A president full of such consideration. But at that moment, Ken cut in front of me.
Hello, Mark. From today, I will be handling this negotiation. My name is Ken, and I am the head of the sales planning department. Terry has been in charge until now, and I apologize if he has caused you any inconvenience.
Without even looking at the puzzled Mark, Ken immediately spread out his materials and wanted to start the negotiation. Mark sent me a surprised look, but I couldn't call out Ken in this situation. Resigning myself to the fact that the negotiation was about to begin, I tried to sit next to Ken. Then, Ken snapped at me loudly, as if to intimidate.
What are you doing sitting down on your own? You're just in the way. Don't you get it? Incompetent high school grads should just stand outside and wait.
He waved his hand to shoo me away as if chasing off a stray dog. Shocked by his rude behavior, I was beyond angry and stunned into silence.
Don't you get it yet? This is why it's regrettable having high school grads around. Why can't you understand that it's even rude to be in the same room?
Ken sneered maliciously, emphasizing the fact that I was a high school graduate. With an air of confidence, he turned his back to me and began to initiate the negotiation with Mark. Mark remained still for a while, but finally managed to muster his voice.
What are you talking about, Ken? Who do you think this person is?
Panic and irritation were evident in his voice, causing Ken to look surprised and bewildered.
I know, Terry is one of our employees, an incompetent man who is a high school grad.
Ken laughed offhandedly as Mark looked at me with an expression that said he couldn't believe it. Ken really didn't know anything about me? With that thought, I shook my head, and Mark held his forehead as if he couldn't believe what was happening. Seeing the exchange between Mark and me, Ken spoke up unpleasantly.
What's wrong with Terry? If he has been a nuisance, I apologize. After all, he's just a high school grad. It's truly regrettable how he infiltrated our company.
No, he is.
Mark, as if he couldn't take it anymore, tried to silence Ken, but Ken, now completely riled up, began to flatter Mark.
By contrast, I graduated from a famous top university. While I can't match Mark's brilliant career, rest assured that I will handle the discussions from now on.
As Ken spoke, it almost felt like the temperature in the room was dropping, but he seemed oblivious, continuing to force the conversation while smiling smugly, trying to secure the $20 million deal for himself.
That incompetent high school graduate probably didn't explain things adequately, so let me clarify things for you.
Understood.
Mark nodded gravely, and Ken smiled triumphantly, thinking he had succeeded. But the next moment, it was Mark who changed the course of the conversation.
Excuse me, Ken. It's clear you know absolutely nothing about Terry.
What do you mean by that?
Mark explained calmly but firmly to Ken.
It seems you're unaware that Terry is actually a co-founder of the parent company, essentially the headquarters of the company you work for.
No way, co-founder. Terry, you're joking.
It must have been an unexpected revelation, Ken muttered in disbelief, even in front of Mark. However, Mark sighed deeply with a look of exasperation and began to explain slowly.
If you had been following economic news, you would know this is common knowledge. Terry's name is all over the place.
Mark operated his tablet and showed a screen displaying an interview article about me. Not only the recent web media interview I had at the company, but also past published books, industry newspapers articles, and even my appearances on radio and TV. Showing my face and name were displayed one after another. In fact, I had lived a life similar to that of a company founder. In domestic schools, I couldn't engage in the standard curriculum, and it became utterly boring for me. Feeling that going to school was a waste, I secluded myself at home and taught myself programming. During that time, I discovered a bug in a business venture already established by the founder, which I pointed out via email. This sparked a personal exchange. After continued interactions across the seas, I was personally invited by the founder, who took a liking to me. When he was setting up the current company, I was listed as a co-founder to handle the division of labor and to streamline operations. After that, the company grew successfully, and satisfied with my contributions, I retired. I was thinking of relaxing abroad when, out of the blue, the CEO Robert, an acquaintance, asked me to work at this company. Robert's managed American branch was still very small, but I was moved by his enthusiasm and passion for setting up a convenient e-commerce site overseas. Having forgotten the thrill of work as the company in America grew, I was reminded of my passion and started working at this company 5 years ago under the condition that I would work on site. Ken, who had been staring at the tablet for a while, gradually lost his smile, and his face turned pale. While watching this, Mark quietly spoke up.
I am aware of what Terry has done so far. That's why I wanted to work with him. Please understand.
But he really is just a high school graduate. Someone with an embarrassing educational background that I would be ashamed to introduce anywhere.
Ken, completely flustered, began to shout hysterically, spitting as he spoke. The value system of educational elitism that he had believed in was crumbling, and learning the true identity of someone he had belittled as inferior seemed to have disturbed his peace of mind. Smirking unnervingly, he continued to fawn over Mark.
Terry is ignorant and uneducated. An embarrassment. Please let me handle this directly instead of this fool, and I ask you to please proceed with this contract.
What I value is not education but achievements. Besides, I don't want to talk to someone like you.
Pointed out sharply by Mark. Ken jerked his shoulders up in shock. Mark, not with his usual calm expression, but with a bitter look, glared at Ken.
Who is the one without knowledge? Aren't you the one who didn't know about Terry's achievements? It's absolutely impossible to negotiate with such a person. If it's not Terry, then there's no deal.
Wait, please listen to me. I am truly excellent and well educated. I promise I will do a satisfactory job.
Mark looked thoroughly disgusted as he stared down Ken, then stood up to leave. Still, Ken clung desperately, trying to hold him back, but his behavior was as repulsive and pitiful as could be. Seeing this, I couldn't just stand by any longer, so I stepped forward. Ken, it's best if you stop now.
Shut up. Who do you think caused all this mess?
Ken flailed away my hand in resistance. Then, widening his eyes, he glared at me, but I had more important matters to attend to than to engage with him further. I took a step forward and apologized to Mark. I'm very sorry for the disturbance caused today. There's no excuse for Ken's rudeness and his numerous disrespectful remarks, but please forgive us. It was clear that Ken was entirely at fault for this fiasco. Therefore, even if Mark decided to call off our discussion or cancel it, I couldn't complain. It was unavoidable. Yet, I felt compelled to apologize once, and he responded with a gentle voice.
Terry, I have no problem proceeding with our negotiation as planned.
He stated this decisively, then turned his gaze to Ken.
Shouldn't you be the one apologizing, Ken?
Well, that.
Even now, did he think bowing his head would mean admitting defeat? Ken squirmed uncomfortably, glancing between me and Mark. Then Mark stated firmly,
If you still don't understand, then please leave. I have important business matters to discuss with Terry.
I will handle the negotiations. Please allow me to stay as well.
Ken, nearly in tears from fear and frustration, attempted to approach Mark. His eyes reddened with tears, and he occasionally sniffled pitifully. At this point, his behavior was nothing short of childish for a grown man. The contrast between his appearance when he entered the meeting room and now was stark. But Mark delivered a final ultimatum.
I am telling you to leave. I don't want to see your face anymore.
Upon hearing this, Ken staggered back a few steps, mumbling incomprehensibly. Yet, as Mark and I looked on calmly, realizing that he had no allies, Ken's shoulders slumped, and he exited the office. Afterwards, Ken went straight to the CEO, Robert, to complain that I had monopolized the negotiation, but instead, he was the one who ended up being reprimanded.
You've caused a great deal of trouble. It was only thanks to Terry that things worked out this time. But why did you interfere with his work?
But didn't you tell me that I should be personally guiding Terry in his work from now on?
Ken must have thought Robert would join him in anger. He tried to seek comfort from Robert, but this only incensed the CEO further.
What are you talking about? The opposite. I instructed you to go to work with Terry and learn his way of doing things.
No way.
It seemed Robert had intended to re-educate Ken from the start. He placed Ken in my department deliberately to learn about work attitudes and practices, thinking that witnessing my proven track record firsthand might change his mindset, despite my lack of formal education. However, Ken's misconceptions exceeded even the CEO's expectations. Ken believed he had nothing to learn from an employee with a high school diploma, thinking instead it was his role to teach and remove incompetent staff, which led to his outrageous behavior. Even after all this, Ken continued to complain, but a background check revealed he had been stealing contracts from his coworkers. An investigation into sales records showed he had often appropriated his coworkers' achievements to inflate his own performance. Ken remained defiant until the end.
This is Terry's grudge against me. He's just jealous of my education. He's ruined my life.
Clearly, it was a case of reaping what he sowed. Later, Ken was transferred to a foreign branch by Robert, to a country where even English was not commonly spoken. Before departing, Ken resigned voluntarily. Since then, he tried changing jobs multiple times, but never lasted long anywhere. Now, he works at a demanding construction site, surrounded by robust colleagues who care little about academic credentials. Ken is ridiculed daily, but works nonetheless because he needs to make a living. As for me, after the successful $20 million deal with Mark, I was promoted to department head and now lead the sales department. I had once stepped away from corporate life, considering a peaceful retirement, but I'm glad I didn't. Now, I'm living a fulfilling life surrounded by coworkers who admire me, Robert who relies on me, and clients who trust me with their business. Though I had retired fully satisfied, it seems there are still new challenges ahead for me. I'm excited to continue leveraging my skills and working hard alongside my company colleagues.